Lockbox, Chapter 12. Days later, Little Town grocery store was super busy. Sarah walked into the store, her mind set on a task. She needed to talk to Donaldson. Passing by a busy Rhonda, with a brief nod of recognition, she made her way to Donaldson's office. Sarah had so much on her mind: her research, her mother's lockbox, and the way she dreamed, and the last dream that referred to her mother. I am the living voice, she had dreamed, hearing those words, and the demand of the dreamed voice that she go to Ephesus pushed her to visit and talk to Donaldson. It had been Donaldson who had told her the research was something Jasmine would want Sarah to do. Was this living voice Donaldson's? She could not help but feel agitated as she sat in her boss's office. She grilled him like a police officer might question a crime suspect. Why really did you want me to do this job? I already told you why, to find out who the elder was, responded Donaldson in a nonchalant fashion. He shrugged his shoulder. No great mystery. Well, fidgeted Sarah, I did learn some things, but, well, she took a deep breath. Since I've been doing this research, I've been having these dreams. Okay, so I just, Sarah took a seat in front of Donaldson. My dreams are about a place. Donaldson raised an eyebrow. Okay, I don't understand, Sarah. People dream all the time. Seeing Sarah's agitation, he pursued her seeming fear. You had a dream, and it spooked you. Exactly, responded Sarah, relieved. Did you know this would happen? How would I know? He considered Sarah closely. Looking at Sarah seriously, he said, when you spend a lot of time on a particular topic, it is natural to have dreams about it. Dreams can feel very real. They may even recur. We all know this from experience. You don't have to be a psychologist to figure this out. Leaning back in his chair, let's talk about your research so far. From what I know, there was a bishop named Papias, and he was supposed to be a hearer of John and a companion of Polycarp, a man of primitive times. Sarah felt relieved at Donaldson's suggestion. Yes, let's. That's what I've gleaned so far. This Papias wrote a volume in 5 books. Donaldson leaned forward in his chair. Eusebius already doubted the reality of a connection between Papias and the Apostle John on the grounds that Papias himself, in the preface to his book, distinguished the Apostle John from John the Presbyter, and seems to have had significant contact only with John the Presbyter and a certain Aristian. The question is which of these two, John the Presbyter or John the Apostle, is the so called elder? This is your task. I know the task. The answer to the question is they may be one and the same. No? Sarah stood up and began pacing around the room. She came back to the point of her rush to the store. Irenaeus, however, says Papias only heard John the Presbyter and Aristian, and Eusebius contradicts himself. In his earlier chronicles, he says Papias heard the Apostle John, but later in his church history, he changed and said he did not hear the apostle. Eusebius doesn't explain why he changed his view. Was it because he came across new information which altered his opinion, or was he simply expressing his own confusion with the earlier sources he was using? So it's all confusing. Be that as it may, in my dream, I want to go back to that. In my dream, a voice referred to being a living voice. Okay, what is your question then? I and my mother, how are we connected to this living voice? I have no idea. You're talking about a dream. What you experience in your dreams belongs to you and to you alone. None of us can experience what you are experiencing. It's personal. We can only experience you experiencing, and that is its external manifestation, nothing more. Shaking her head frantically, pacing back and forth, Sarah remonstrated. That lockbox my mother left me, it makes me dream. Makes you dream? How so? Every time I handle it, I have this longing to be with my mother. And I'm not speaking about magical happenings. I'm saying my feelings are so strong, I can't help but want to be with my mother and to have her back. I believe this is making me dream, like a dream I had of a road leading into what looks like some kind of town or city. Old, very old. Donaldson raised an eyebrow. Ancient, maybe? Yes, that's right. She sat down again. Ancient. They sat in silence for a second. Donaldson broke the silence. Your mother, Jasmine, was desperate to have me translate the note. I did, and she left you this lockbox. Reflexively, Sara interjected. I'm not going to open that lockbox. It appears it's not going to matter what you consciously want. Your inner being may have a longing more powerful than what your ego wants. It's speaking to you in dreams. Sara gazed at Donaldson. You know more than you're telling me about my mother, about the lockbox, the dreams. Donaldson stood up and walked over to look out on the store floor. He took a long moment to answer Sara's assertion. He did know more, more than she realized. You have your option. Ignore your dreams and hope they go away or go live them. To live out a dream in real life, that's insanity. Maybe. Donaldson turned and walked back to his desk, reached down to the side of his desk and pulled his black briefcase onto the table. Unlocking it, he pulled out a manila envelope, then gently pulled out a thin sheet of parchment. The parchment had Greek writing on it, and he laid it on the table in front of Sara. Then he put a white sheet of paper next to the parchment, and he silently wrote a translation in English on the white paper. This is part of the translation, he said as he scribbled on the paper, reading out loud as he wrote. Who is the liar? It is whoever denies that Jesus is the Christ. Such a person is the Antichrist, denying the Father and the Son. Sara shook her head. Denying the Father and the Son? Strange. My mother never talked to me about any of this. Follow the trail left by Jasmine, Sara. I get you are not ready to open that lockbox, but for some reason, Jasmine wanted you to experience this, whatever this is. And it feels so damn important, even if it is all just making you dream. You know, the ancients believed dreams were a way for the gods to communicate with humans. Even many early Christians believed in the informative power of dreams. They saw them as a metaphor of reality. Who is to say God of our fathers does not still communicate in dreams? I'm happy to support you. You are happy to support me. You want me to treat my dreams as if they are real. Sara walked to the door. She wanted to leave, to run from this entire situation. Is this really what you want out of your $65,000? I just want you to learn everything you can about the elder. If following your dreams to the end brings you clarity on this research topic, so be it. Life is a puzzle. We all just have a piece of that puzzle. We need your piece of the puzzle. Sara looked dubiously at Donaldson. We need your piece of the puzzle? Who are this we? Donaldson didn't answer. What is your piece of the puzzle? He just smiled. Damn you, Donaldson. I can't mourn my mother forever. She turned and fled out the door, wanting to leave the entire nonsense behind, and very much wanting this gift of the presence of a mother, even in dreams. That night, at home, Sara sat silently in her bedroom, her long, faded yellow nightgown draped over her like a flag of doubt. She kept circling around in her mind her conversation earlier in the day with Donaldson, and the way she dreamed when she held the lockbox, how its very touch ignited her longing. She believed she couldn't ignore what was happening to her, and at the same time, desiring to participate in a make-believe world of dreams felt totally insane. Were these dreams she was having really a conduit into her mother's presence or a mirror into Sara's own loss of saneness? Where would her dream of a long ancient road into an ancient village lead her? Could it be that the parchment scribbled with Greek writing be an actual copy of the autograph, or maybe the autograph itself from the so-called elder? Or is it just a cruel forgery? Could be someone she now knew lived more than 2,000 years ago, sometime around 90, 95 AD, some 60 years after the death of Jesus, actually be trying to penetrate the mist of time to reach her? How could it be that the Apostle John, or the elder, who was in the time frame at stake, would be nearly 100 years old? They would be able to speak to her through dreams? How could a dream do all this? In this frame of mind, she reached over to the night desk by her bed, turned on the lamp, bathing herself in the soft white glow of its light, and took up her cell phone. She hit the speed dial button and listened to the voice. "Rhonda," came the voice. "I need you to come over to my place now." "Sara, what's wrong?" Nothing is wrong, but please come." "I'm on my way. Hang in there." As Sara disconnected from the call, Sara stood up and walked over to her bedroom door. The trailer home was dark throughout, except for the light glowing beside her bed. She could barely see her mother's door in the darkness. Lived the dream, pieces of a puzzle, real life, an avenue to the gods, she whispered in the dark. Is this the path you took to become a Christian mother? What is the story that changed you and led to your death? She turned and walked over to her closet and began to pull together a wardrobe. Tomb, Chapter 13. It was just after midnight when Rhonda arrived at the front door. By the time she arrived, Sara had dressed in the same outfit she wore on the day of Jasmine's funeral. A white blouse with the ruffles at the buttons, and her full flowing cream skirt that had danced in the breeze like sad laughter on the day of Jasmine's cremation. It was the traditional Japanese mourning dress Sara had worn in honor of her mother, and it seemed appropriate. This action belonged to her mother's heritage. At the same time, Sara would continue to keep her promise to herself not to open the lockbox. In spite of the mysterious dream sequences which alluded to the potential presence of Jasmine, Sara dressed as if her mother had joined the long line of humanity who, having lived on earth, had surrendered to the price of mortality and forever departed. So, as her mother had died, Sara decided she would dress for the dead. She planned to walk the avenue of her dreams, where she thought she would discover the path her mother took. The direction which made Jasmine become something very different than what Sara had come to expect from her. It was after midnight, and Rhonda stood in the doorway under the porch light, her brown skin staring hard at Sara. Rhonda figured there must be some kind of emergency for Sara to request she come over so late at night. Feeling the need to move quickly, Rhonda was not too concerned for her wardrobe. She dressed quickly, putting on a loose red dress, then grabbing her long brown coat, she pulled on her brown boots. Once outside her apartment complex, she walked briskly the few blocks to Sara's trailer park, crunching the fresh snow on this cold night, until she was up the trailer's walkway, standing at Sara's door. The white porch light shone off the white substance under her feet. When Sara opened the door, Rhonda was folding her arms in an attempt to stay warm from the chill. "What is going on, Sara? Are you okay?" "I came as fast as I could." "I need you to come watch me." She pulled the door further open and gestured for Rhonda to enter. Rhonda walked in. "Watch you? For what reason?" As they walked into the living room, Sara was speaking. "I really don't know." "You really don't know?" "I met Mr. Donaldson yesterday. I noticed. Our research has given me a direction." They arrived at the living room couch. Sara sat, then gestured for a friend to sit next to her, patting the couch cushion. her lips twisted with uncertainty. She approached the couch and slowly sat, expecting to hear some horrible news considering the lateness of the night. The trailer was still mostly dark in the post-midnight light and soft glow of the table lamps. Rhonda could feel the deep eeriness in Sarah's voice. It matched the mysteriousness of the darkness around them. Rhonda spoke first. You are dressed the same as when you had your mother's funeral. I am not a believer in the afterlife, retorted Sarah. For most of my life, my mother had no interest in the afterlife either. Okay, I'm here, I'm listening, and make it a good one since you got me to walk here on this frosty night. What's going on? You said your mother used to have no interest in the afterlife, but obviously, before her death, that changed for Jasmine. Not for me. Did it change for my mother? Yes, it did. And that's why you are wearing your mourning clothes again? It's a piece of a puzzle. Piece of a puzzle? Rhonda put her hand on Sarah's lap. Is that why you called me over here to talk about puzzles? Friend, I am not going to tell you how long to mourn, but if you are struggling with a spiritual question, why not go to a priest? My priest is a very friendly, compassionate. Sarah cut her off. I don't need to go to a priest for what I plan to do. I just need my friend. See, your friend is here. No, meet up. Jasmine was a believer, and you are trying to understand why she decided to believe something so different than what you were used to. All I want you to do is sit here and watch me. I mean, if something happens. Just sit here and watch you. If something happens. Sarah stood up and smoothed out her cream-colored skirt. Wait here for a second. She disappeared into the hallway. Rhonda could hear doors open and close, and then the footsteps of Sarah returning in the darkness. Watching Sarah emerge in the soft bluish glow of the table lamp spooked Rhonda a little bit. She laughed nervously. You look like a ghost standing there in your white blouse and your skirt. She paused as Sarah stood in front of her silently holding the lockbox. Sarah approached and sat down next to Rhonda, cradling the lockbox gently in her two hands. Her dark eyes bore into it like a talisman. Dreams, she was thinking. Slowly turned to Rhonda. Do you feel it? Rhonda shook her head in the negative. Feel what? Doubt. Oh, doubt. I think confusion is a more appropriate word for me. Rhonda glanced at the lockbox, then up at Sarah. Are you going to open it? Just sit here with me for a moment, pleaded Sarah. With confusion written all over her face, Rhonda took a deep breath. This whole thing is very odd. You called me over here after midnight, and I'm thinking you need real help. And this urgency is because you need me sitting on the couch to watch you hold the lockbox? What Sarah said next strengthened the sense in Rhonda that her friend was still mourning Jasmine's passing, that the mourning had the first tinges of instability of mind. I called you here because I'm not sure what's going to happen when I dream. Rhonda was incredulous. You called me here to watch you dream. Yes, I don't intend to stay in the dream. I will go in just to see if it's real. Then I will come right back out and a dry run. Rhonda felt like she would faint as she nodded her head back and forth in shock. She whispered in the trailer home darkness, What do you mean? Go into the dream to see if it's real. This sounds like lunacy, Sarah. It is pointless to explain something I'm not even sure about myself. Sarah defended her need. Just sit there and watch me. If nothing happens, it's all good. She adjusted her seating position, the two hands firmly cradling the lockbox. Then she wordlessly closed her eyes, and after a few seconds, as she meditated on her mother's lockbox, dressed in her clothes of mourning, the words came out of her mouth like a wisp of wind. I'm going to dream now, she said. Okay, let's get this over with, sighed Rhonda. It's after midnight, and I should be in bed. But I'm your bestie, you know that. I'll go along with this. Just sit here and watch. Watch. Gotcha. Sarah willed herself to sleep. It came almost instantly, as she sat wordlessly with Rhonda in the darkness. Suddenly, the end table gleam in her room had a luminescent companion. Sarah felt the lockbox grow warm in her hands, warmer and warmer, and the warmth made her fall ever deeper into sleep, like when one has a heavy meal or was relaxing in a warm sauna. Sarah opened her eyes. She couldn't see Rhonda anymore. The texture of the darkness had changed. Sarah imagined the darkness had become like a thin fabric, like a kind of rice paper. She looked down and saw her hands were free, and she didn't see the lockbox there, where it had been cradling in the palms of her hands. At the same time, she could still feel it, and strangely see herself sitting there next to Rhonda. And at the same time, the darkness around her rippled like falling water. She lifted one finger and poked at it, as she saw the ripples expand to her left and right. I am dreaming, right? She took her other hand and jabbed at the thin, wavy darkness, and her hand went through as if the darkness didn't exist. She didn't hear any ripping sound. She took her other hand and with both hands pulled on the thread of the darkness, as if pulling open a curtain. Before her, on either side of the black rip, she saw once again the ancient road, as clear as glass, seemingly real, concrete, sharply shaped stones embedded into a relic ground. Above the road, a bright blue sky, not a hint of otherness to it, just a bright, clear day with a shimmering afternoon yellow sun ruling over the sky. On either side of the road, pillars with markings, and in the reachable distance, a sprawling city of stone and red tiled roofs. Sarah paused, gazing at the shimmering image that was the road leading up a hill between two round top hills toward the city, the columns and structures lining the road with its many stone foundations. You certainly look solid, Sarah said to herself with wonder in her voice. Without trying to touch the surface of the view, she ran her hand along the edges of the dark perimeter that framed the image in her dream. Or was the whole thing an hallucination? She pulled her hands back, and the rip closed, but the wavy darkness remained. She examined the results on her hand, confirmed the reality of her flesh. My hands look normal. Hmm. I don't feel anything different. Suddenly she heard an urgently pleading voice. It sounded distant, far away, the kind of distant voice one might hear in a dream, as if the sound wasn't really there, or as if it was hard to discern to whom the voice belonged. But Sarah thought to herself, it must be Rhonda. Rhonda called her. The wavy darkness was gone. Sarah felt the reality of her couch, and her eyes took in the dim, bluish illumination of her table lamp. She turned and looked in the direction of Rhonda. Rhonda crossed herself. Are you okay? I was worried for a second. I dreamed on command, Rhonda. I saw the ancient road. You saw the ancient road. Rhonda sighed. Okay. Listen, sister. You basically tranced on me for a few seconds. You worried me. I still say you go see a priest. This guilt trip, and what would I say to him? Hey, my hand can go through a paper-thin veil of darkness that rippled like a waterfall, and when I pulled it open like a curtain, I saw an ancient road. Oh, wow, you are a tripping girl. Sarah hesitated. She wasn't quite sure. She looked down again at the lockbox in her hands. She had to force herself to dream an ancient world, a reality that somehow had dominated her mother's final weeks. It might have been, in some way, connected with her death. The wide road, perhaps capable of accommodating 6 people evenly spaced abreast, led to a tantalizing prospect of learning important revelations about her mother's final weeks, her mother's conversion to Christianity. Would Sarah dare to live her mother's gospel? She grabbed Rhonda's hand. Please just wait for me for 2 hours. If I don't return after 2 hours, then go to Donaldson. Tell him what happened. Donaldson? Why him? I will go to a priest. Please, just do as I ask. Rhonda shook her head. You are asking a lot from your bestie. I can't stand seeing you like this. You need to see someone. You need help. It is clear to me you are urgently needing someone who can bring you out from your pain. I'm not feeling pain, argued Sara. It's just a dream. She hesitated. Just a dream. Rhonda stood up. You know what? I am going to say no, not tonight. This is for your own good. The idea that you can just hold on to that lockbox and have a dream, that's desperation, sister. It's irrational. I beg you, please go see a priest, a therapist, someone who can professionally walk you through your grief. Sara smiled. Her heart of hearts, she felt perhaps Rhonda spoke the truth. Why did she want to sit on the couch and try to dream a reality? The very idea felt like a contradiction in terms. A dream, a reality. She looked at Rhonda. Her voice fell into sorrow. Deal. Before I try another dream like that, I'll go see my mother's priest, Father Seraphim. Lockbox, Chapter 14. Father Seraphim hadn't seen Sara since the funeral. He had given her the lockbox key and informed her about Jasmine's final wishes. He had had many conversations and confessional moments with Jasmine, and he knew Sara was not a Christian, and she had shown no particular interest in the faith. In spite of this, the sandy-haired Father Seraphim was not surprised to receive a call from Sara. He had been very kind to Sara's unbelief, even if the daughter was perplexed at her mother's newly found faith in God. Father Seraphim wondered if his obvious feeling of guilt at his inability to express the gospel to Sara had been transparent to Sara. He had no specific conversation with Sara about Jasmine passing away, so the father had no way to know if Sara blamed God for her mother's death. It was not an unusual posture for unbelievers and minimal Christians. He had confessed to Sara upon handing over the silver key to her lockbox on the day of Jasmine's cremation. Your mother swore me to secrecy. Back then, he had sheepishly conceded he knew little about the lockbox or what the box might contain. When Sara called and asked to meet, he was in an expectant receptivity. He agreed to meet with Sara at his parish office at St. John the Evangelist Church. Sara arrived at St. John still wearing her mourning clothes. St. John was on the edge of the small town of Lafayette, where Highway 287 intersected Public Road. She made it up in her mind to do this, as a sign of purpose, including again wearing the white blouse with its ruffled buttons and the cream-hued skirt. On this day, she had gathered her black, shiny hair in a ponytail, and slung it over her shoulder as she slung over her shoulder a brown backpack in which she had begun to keep all her research. St. John had a glass door that you pulled open to enter directly into the intimate-sized narthex. A prayer corner with its flickering candles occupied the wall to the left, and on the right the sanctuary immediately opened to the worshippers. The iconostases dominated the front of the sanctuary with its icons of Jesus, Mary, John the Baptist, and St. John on traditional iconographic display common to all Orthodox Christian churches. Sara passed through the narthex, admiring the beautiful images and colors, but wondering about it all, and how her mother had come to be attracted to this belief system. St. John's was a small, poorer congregation hanging on by a thread. The parishioners of St. John were too small in numbers to afford to pay for their own priest, so the bishop was forced to juggle priests near retirement to make sure liturgy could be performed each Sunday for the parishioners. Father Seraphim was one of the longest lasting of these volunteer on loan priests. Just inside, at the entrance of the sanctuary, off to the left, lay Father Seraphim's small office. It was just big enough for his chair and desk, one chair squeezed in for a parishioner, and a couple small bookshelves. From his chair, Father Seraphim could see the entire sanctuary beyond the chanter's stand through the clear glass. He could see Sarah approaching. A priest of above average height, Father Seraphim was a fairly lanky man. He didn't have a stomach, being thin without seeming frail. A man of keen intellect, he won praise from believing and unbelieving scholars alike. The former professor, who still on occasion taught at the seminary, relished a good mental joust. He stood up and greeted Sarah at his office door. "Come in, Sara." He gestured to the lone seat in front of his desk. "Let me move some of these things." He went about adjusting the clutter on the chair and around the feet of the chair. "Sorry, it's so cramped in here." Sarah smiled and waited patiently. "No worries, Father Seraphim." When he was done, she sat down, watching as Father Seraphim rounded his heavily used desk and sat. He quickly cleared out some of the paperwork in front of him. Father Seraphim folded his aged hands on the desk. "I'm so glad you called and asked for this meeting." He smiled at her pleasantly. "I've been praying for you." "Praying for me?" Sarah received the news with honest indifference. "Thank you." Father Seraphim sensed Sarah's awkwardness. "Let's start with me confessing something." "You have something to confess?" "I do," admitted Father Seraphim. "I didn't agree with Jasmine keeping her faith journey from you. She and I discussed her determination in this regard. She believed you wouldn't understand. Against my better judgment, I kept my distance from you. It made me feel, well, rather cowardly. I have been regretful. I have never cherished such a feeling. For that, I need to apologize. You deserve to know long before your mother passed." "Why do you say that?" questioned Sarah. She was surprised by the priest's candor. She had always thought of priests just another form of glorified politician or cunning businessman. This was not a negative evaluation of Sarah's part. She simply understood the world as people making their way, earning a living, engaging in the business of hard work, finding one's niche in which to prosper and stay alive as long as possible. Priests, like policemen and doctors and lawyers and bus drivers, make the world go, function, fit together in a non-destructive way. In this way, Sarah knew what most people knew. Life had a physical side and a psychological side with emotional and spiritual needs. Sarah was indifferent to the role priests play. If priests were nothing but glorified politicians to her, it was because they had a belief system Sarah felt no connection to or need for. Until her mother's newfound faith and the immediately following decline in health, ending in death. That changed everything. "The Christian faith is meant to be a light, not a darkness," replied Father Seraphim. "Light, not darkness?" Sarah took the phrase in. "That's vague. But I take that to mean you had your reasons for feeling bad about your actions." "Or lack of action," corrected Father Seraphim. "Here we are then, and I have a chance to engage with you. I'll take what I can get. Why are we meeting today, Miss Sarah?" "My best friend, her name is Rhonda. She believes I need a third party to talk to, someone who can professionally help guide me through my mourning. She thinks it has been long enough since the funeral for me to stop wearing these mourning clothes." She gestured at her outfit, then went on and told Father Seraphim about her experience with the lockbox in her dreams. Father Seraphim listened silently, motionlessly. He held back. There was no need to confirm or deny. As he listened to Sarah, he heard her honesty and her perplexity. He heard her insist she felt fine, that she was not abnormally clinging to mourning her mother. He learned about the task Donaldson had bestowed on Sarah, paying her a hefty 65,000 lump sum salary. Father Seraphim never made that much as a professor or priest at the seminary, so whatever other incentive pushed Sarah to do what she was doing, the pay gave her a rational basis. When Sarah finished, the priest leaned back in his chair, his folded hands pressed against his chest. "What do you think?" asked Sarah nervously. Father Seraphim facial features, being clean shaved, not typical for Orthodox priests, exposed the many lines in the priest's forehead. They scrunched together as his deep, keen intellect pondered. He played with his sandy hair as he thought through his answer. You know the difference between a vision and a dream, Sarah? The difference between a vision and a dream? I never really thought about it. Hmm, it's not easy to explain. And I'm not saying the difference matters in your case, if there is a distinction. A dream usually is mixed with unresolved issues deep in the subconscious. They tend to operate as voluntary affairs of the subconscious with very irreconcilable images, with discordant messages. It's almost like a librarian going through very old, long forgotten files that have been locked away, gathering dust in a basement. Sarah took this information in. She didn't feel like this description fit what little she experienced. The long, solid looking road felt to her like a very clear truth if placed out of time. She knew about the Roman era, but she hadn't been studying it. It certainly wasn't top of mind. On the other hand, it would qualify as a memory file tucked away from the vicarious recollection gathering dust in the file cabinet of her mind. And what about a vision? She asked Father Seraphim. How to describe vision in contradistinction to a dream? Father Seraphim leaned forward in his chair. He took on a very serious demeanor. A vision is usually a completely involuntary affair. Completely involuntary? How? Not from you, mind you. You have no power to control this kind of mental remembrance or product of an imagination. This is so because a true vision comes from outside. Comes from outside? From where? Father Severin shrugged. Who knows? A vision usually shows up as a concrete thing. There's no confusion. It's generally direct, clear, and its reality emphatic. You know it's a vision when you can't deny it happened or be confused as to its images. When it's over, you may even be confused about your senses, asking yourself what is real. That fits what I experienced in my dream, however briefly. The Roman road, the tombstones, the city of stone in the distance. She took a deep breath. But you said, who knows, when I asked from where. Of course, confirmed Father Seraphim. I am an Orthodox Christian. So was your mother. In the end, visions can be from any outside spiritual force. Outside spiritual force? Hopefully from God. I don't believe in God, Father Seraphim. No, you don't. And I would change that in you now, if I could. That's not in my power. What I can say is, you may be at risk if you don't come to faith in God. No pressure. No pressure, repeated Sarah. So you're saying I'm having a vision from someone or something outside myself, from God? Why would God want to give me a vision? Someone who has no faith in his existence at all. Perhaps someone is trying to guide you. Father Seraphim stood up. Understand, I'm not confirming if what you are experiencing is a vision. It may be, or it may be just a dream from your subconscious. Or here's another possibility. It could be a hybrid, vision and dream. I would need more information to give you more of an analysis. I know just enough to give you a general explanation. What can I say? What I can say is, you sound rational to me. How long a person mourns is totally an individual thing, and no one has a right to tell you when it's enough. There is, of course, the formal period of mourning, which involves things like wakes, funerals, eulogies, burial, or cremation. The completion of any of those things are the formal end of mourning. The psychological journey of mourning, the spiritual part, how long that takes, it's anyone's guess. Sarah joined Father Seraphim standing. She started walking out of the office, and Father Seraphim followed her into the nearby narthex. It was late afternoon, and the first hints of twilight could be seen through the glass doors in front of her. "Can I ask you a question?" "Of course you can." "I may need to talk to you again, if you don't mind." "I'm here for you. Call any time." He touched Sara gently on the arm. "I'm curious myself about this dream of yours, especially the connection of the lockbox. I kind of feel like I have a duty here, a responsibility I can't shirk. Jasmine shared with me many things. I can't talk about what she confessed to me in confession, but other things are open to sharing as they become relevant." Sara opened the front door onto the concrete Lafayette Street. "Thank you, Father Seraphim. You are very kind. It's nice to have an impartial sounding board I can turn to on this journey of mine. My best friend can get so emotional sometimes. I sense you have an open mind." Father Seraphim didn't reply. He simply watched Sara leave. For her part, relief washed over Sara. She had arrived thinking the priest would make impossible assertions she would be unable to accept. He hadn't done what she feared. She considered Father Seraphim might try to convert her. No such thing happened. He simply guided her through what she shared about her experience. She sensed she can trust this priest, glorified politician or businessman he may be. Lockbox, Chapter 15. That night, long after Sara returned to her trailer home in Lafayette, she took the lockbox with its white purple yin and yang U out of its nest in her mother's dresser drawer and sat down on the couch holding it. She was naturally tired. It had been a long day. Nevertheless, the conversation with Father Seraphim stayed fresh in Sara's mind as she drove home in her green Volvo. As twilight turned to night, she looked up at the black wall clock. The hour hand and the minute hand read 6 p.m. She laid down on the couch as fatigue washed over her, and she fell asleep with the lockbox nestled against her midsection. Soon her eyes started fluttering rapidly as she entered deep sleep and the dream state. Suddenly, a man, pushing a noisy cart filled with household items and wearing a dingy gray single tunic, shoved past her. "Watch where you're going!" shouted the man as she ambled by her. Caught by surprise, Sara moved quickly to the side. "Sorry, sorry." She noticed the stony road was busy indeed. It was like looking at a movie from the ancient past come to life, clear, crisp, without any vagaries. The hard road, the many colorful dressed passers-by reminded her of everything she imagined about how the ancient Romans dressed. Above her, she observed a bright blue sky. It must have been around the noon hour. "I am dreaming," she thought to herself. "It feels so real." Then she heard what she believed must be a spoken language. The oddness of the speech garbled in her head and suddenly began to merge into a mixture of incomprehensible gibberish until her own language became clear to her. English. She could hear English in this dream. As she looked around, what she saw reminded her of ancient Roman cities. She could imagine broken Roman ruins suddenly morphing into wholeness. She remembered seeing pictures of how these ancient buildings would look from their artistic renditions in books, now fully restored, or brand new as if they never been ruined. "Am I dreaming of ancient Rome?" she whispered to herself. "This is very strange, this dream. I feel like I'm really in an ancient city. All my senses tell me this is so," she thought to herself. "What are you?" came the voice, loud, unmistakable, and direct. At first, the question from the male voice didn't register to Sara. "Did you hear me?" As Sara finally caught on to the fact that someone was addressing her in her dream, she looked across the road at a young man sitting on a stoop by one of the ancient Roman mile markers she had seen images of in movies. "Are you talking to me?" asked Sara. "Do you see me, really?" See you? Responded the young man. As plain as day I see you. You are strangely dressed. Sarah looked down at her white blouse and cream skirt. She was wearing open-toed white striped sandals. Her dream included the morning outfit she still was wearing in the memory of her mother and the task she set for herself. The dream had not provided her with fitting ancient Roman clothing. The young man questioned her again. I see you have a tattoo on your arm. Are you one of those wild Britannies from Britannia? Sarah looked down at her arm and then up at the young man. She had forgotten about her yellow flower tattoo, which represented Jasmine's favorite pastime. No, I'm not from, what you say? Britannia? What year is this dream in? Where am I? What strange questions, responded the young man. The people kept bustling by the two as they observed each other across the road between them. The human traffic, with their carts and horses and on foot, only occasionally paid attention to Sarah's odd presence. The little children grew especially curious and circled Sarah eagerly, even testing her skirt fabric between their fingers. Their parents soon shouted them off. Nothing new here, shouted one father to his curious little daughter. Just another Brittany or some odd foreigner coming to visit Rome's second city. Rome's second city. The phrase pushed Sarah out of her tonic state. Rome's second city. What is that? The young man stood up. Ephesus. That is where you are. The empire's second city in rank. How could you not know this? As the young man drew closer, Sarah put up a hand. Stop. Don't come any closer. He paused and stretched out his arms. No weapons. That doesn't matter, said Sarah hurriedly. I don't know you. He laughed. Apparently not. He paused thoughtfully. My name is Aristian. He waited for her response. Sarah shook her head. Can't be. Right out of the page of... She caught herself. I studied about you. So now I'm dreaming of you? She reoriented herself. Yes, that makes sense. My subconscious is creating an image of you from my readings and other deep memories. If I'm a dream to you, then I'm a concrete one. Sarah felt she needed direction to find her footing. She gazed around the terrain, taking in the stone pillars, tombs, and small stone shops that lined the road. Look, she conceded, you're right. I am not from here. I am looking for a man named John. Maybe you might know him and can direct me? He's very famous in my real world. In your real world? Questioned Aristian. Oh, yeah. You keep saying I'm someone you are dreaming of. Well, that's a curious thing to say. Are we not living in the reign of Domitian? Sarah mumbled the name to herself. Her mind raced back to her very scanty knowledge of ancient times. She had only a bare high school education, and some of her recent research came to mind. She recalled reading that name in Eusebius's church history, Domitian. She hesitated slightly, then added, I'm looking for someone called Apostle John. You know him? There was a wild fear in her voice. Aristian smiled broadly. Know him? He's my teacher. Lockbox, Chapter 16. Even though Sarah believed she was dreaming, she felt no impulse to pull herself out of it. The more real it seemed, the less threatened she felt by her imagination being so vivid. Hadn't Father Seraphin told her that there was a difference between dreams and visions? A vision usually shows up as a concrete thing. There's no confusion. It's generally direct, clear, and its reality emphatic, he said. What Sarah felt she experienced now in this dream could be defined as really emphatic. It was not a mass of discordant images that did not fit. It required no tremendous effort at interpretation. The solidity under her feet felt like she imagined a cobblestone felt like. even if it was Roman road cobbled together from the subconscious. The buildings looked very much what one might expect from ancient city during the Roman Empire, and the people her imagination configured dressed the part of Romans, like in all the movies of the era she ever saw, or drawings she ran across in books. The only thing Sarah realized she would be unable to confirm originated in her memories involved Aristian's actual physical appearance and his vibrant personality. She had nothing to match him with. She had his name in all the books she researched, but none of them said what he looked like. Yet here she was following a young man who claimed to be Aristian. He had the look of a young man of strong physical presence. His brown tunic and a single white sash around his hip was tied loosely around his compact, muscular body. He had bushy, nut brown hair, a broad, protruding jaw, and deep-set, dancing blue eyes that emanated a seriousness, but also the bright gleam that gave him a gaiety Sarah found reassuring, even if he were a figment of a subconscious mind's reconstruction. She was amazed at all the white marble columns, the stone streets, the myriad temples to the various gods, and the red tiled rooftops which populated her dream. How clear, crisp, stony they were. As she followed Aristian, they were going downhill at this point, walking under a colonnade with a line of shiny columns on her right. The the streets bustled with people from all walks of life. Where are we? Asked Sarah. It's called Couratus Street, responded Aristian. A street name, thought Sarah. Could this dream truly be that specific, down to street names? Her subconscious hardly retrieved street names from her file cabinet of memories in the dungeons of her mind. Could this be another sign that her dream was a vision, like Father Seraphim had explained? Many questions crowded her mind as she took it all in. Is that harbor I see in the distance? Yes. Sarah continued following Aristian as he led the way. The sense of uncertainty which colored Sarah's reflection also emoted excitement. Questions about dreams and visions filled her mind as her eyes perceived her surroundings as a solid truth. This perception of stability, the firmness of the ground she walked on, the happy whistling coming from Aristian's lips as he led her through the streets of what he called Ephesus, made Sarah feel secure. Had it been a potpourri of incoherent images from her past or childhood fairy tales, as she usually thought of dreams, she might have been more afraid, more resistant to what she found herself experiencing. But this steady environment, concrete and solid to the touch, filled with normal looking people in their own environment, strengthened Sarah. She dared not ask Aristian if she really had come to first century Ephesus in the Roman Empire, afraid she might destabilize her dream or vision, whatever it was. The sky stretched above her like a blue canopy she always recognized at home. The sun, its yellow glow, hung high and brilliant in its glare, just like an ordinary bright day. She touched the marble columns to her right and felt their concrete truth. The chattering voices around her reached her ears like music. Now she could hear the Latin and Greek languages mixed and intermingled, their distinction palpable as living languages, fluid, direct, penetrating. And when she heard them, they became to her like fluid English. This felt more like a dream, like potpourri, as if the dream or vision was acting like a translator of reality. So two things seemed to tell Sarah she was, in fact, experiencing a dream. The language fluctuations and the physical appearance of the people she had no reason to recognize. However, other aspects of her surroundings argued for the idea she walked in a vision. The tunics, the men not wearing pants, the gold, the purple, the various hues of rank dazzled and spoke of factual presence. She had passed from Lafayette, Colorado, into the ancient Ephesus of the late first century Roman Empire. Sarah decided the time had come to ask some direct questions. She needed answers now, not speculation. Aristian, tell me about the Apostle John. Aristian, his youthful blue eyes gazing back toward Sara. You are definitely not from these parts, are you not? I am from a distant country, she responded. Indeed, from the looks of you, I say you are from a place no soul here ever have visited. I think prudence dictates you be stashed at some secret place as soon as possible. You are already too exposed. Sarah stopped, curious to see a public fountain of white marble on the road. She approached it, dipping her hands into the cool water. It's real. Aristian looked at her confused. And this surprises you? She whispered in amazement. This Roman Ephesus is clean, not dirty like a medieval town that I imagined. She ran her hand along the stone, noticing the carving of the woman in the stone. She's washing her hair, she giggled. I assume you are unaware she is the goddess Venus. About the apostle, Sara reoriented him. Oh, yes, John. They had by this point turned into a narrow, less congested path, on either side flats and shops and two-story tenements. Most of the vibrantly clothed citizens of Ephesus gave way to an avenue of simpler folk, working-class laborers, mom-and-pop shops, and Sarah supposed slaves. Though just from the mere visual, Sarah wouldn't be able to tell slave and freeman apart. Aristian kept talking as they moved on. The Apostle John, he's a kind, temperamental Jew. He has all the rough edges of the Palestine province, but the years have matured him nicely. You called him a Jew, not a Roman. Aristian laughed. He's not a Roman. Oh, no, I'm Roman. Born as one just like Paul. I'm from Corinth in Greece. Sarah took all this in. Your name certainly doesn't seem Jewish. No, it's Greek, Romanized. Yes. You said John had a temper. He does, laughed Aristian, but he keeps it in check. He says long ago Jesus gave him the name Son of Thunder, and ever since then he felt a little embarrassed. It didn't feel like an elevating name like the Lord gave to Peter, the rock, and on this rock I'll build my church. Aristian laughed. Finally, they came to the villa. It looked rather large compared to the small shops and tenements surrounding it. Aristian stopped at the entrance. Here, he gestured for Sarah to proceed in front of him into the structure.